What I'm going to do is to share my screen and put up the first of what is going to be many slides, just so that you all get a feel for what we're going to be looking at today. And if we do a slideshow, we start from the beginning. So hopefully you can all see that at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I move to that. Let's get started because I know you're all very tight for time. Basically, we are recording today's session. So if you have an objection to being video recorded, then please turn off your camera. In order that sirens and police cars and dogs and things don't get in the way, perhaps you wouldn't mind muting your microphones, please. There will be a follow-up to this for everybody of the complete presentation that we're going to be going through. And because we're going to be whizzing through it at quite high speed, I wanted to make sure you're all aware that you will get every slide that you're looking at so that you can go through it in your own time if you wish to. And by all means, please use the chat to set up questions, which we'll get to at the end of the session. If you can make a note of the slide number, if it, I don't suppose it shows up, when you're asking about a particular slide, it really helps there's a number we can go back to. And then I think we'll press on. So what we're going to be looking at today is a very, very fast introduction of who I am and why we're here. And then what we're going to do is how we're going to get to the end product, which is a planning application, how we get there, and how we publish it, and then questions and answers at the end of that. So basically, I've come from a background of IT. I'm a parish councillor in Somerset, and after all of my years in IT, I'm still of the opinion that Parish Online is one of the nicest little applications out there. It's very, very clever, it's very, very sweet, and although it seems to have a terrifying user interface when you first start, once you get going, it turns out to be ideal. I also run a user group because it's there to help people who have issues. And we're also trying to apply pressure on local authorities to come on side and start sharing their layers of data with us. So there's a user group website, which you're very welcome to go and have a look at. So what we're going to create today is a public map of a planning application. We're going to use the one that we've produced for Long Sutton as an example. And I'm just going to show you what that looks like so you can see at the end of the day whether we've got anywhere close to what we're looking at. So the example we're going to is, he says, hopefully, not going to show. How about a click, control click, yeah. Well, we'll do another, go to another way. Sorry about that. Let's go to there. Let's go to this public map, which is, this is available to anybody who gets sent this URL. And what it is a version of the planning applications that we're using in Long Sutton. And it looks a bit too cluttered at the moment. So remember that you are now, any member of the public looking at this through your browser, you can do all this in your browser. So you can spread things out so that they make a bit more sense. And you wait for the system to catch up with the digital photography, but it wouldn't. And then you say, well, actually, I now understand this legend of what the various colors mean. So let me turn that off. So we go into the layers, we say, I don't want the legend. And then you say, I only want 2021 applications, and there's a mass of those. So we still need to zoom in a bit more until we can see what we're doing. And now it begins to make sense. And then those of you who are already familiar with Parish Online will know that it's a location-based data system. In other words, you click on a location and up comes the data with it. So if we click on this one, then lo and behold, in the left-hand column, you get the details about this particular application. You get a list of notes that we've made about it, and then its current status, which you could have told from the color because we have color coded this. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, there's a hyperlink in here that takes you to the local planning authorities page for this particular application. So if I were to click on there, we go out to South Somerset's District Council, and then we have this application. And here is this particular one we're looking at. So you can now look at every document that has anything to do with this particular planning application, and all from just clicking on a public map, which is hopefully appealing. So if you are, let's see if we go back to here, if you are sort of inclined, you can turn off that, you can go into the legend and you can turn off everything. And now you have aerial photography of your parish. And again, you can do all sorts of things with this. If you're not in the area you want to be, you just scroll down, and believe me, it will catch up. He said patiently, but it will. But basically, there we go. So now you've given an overhead photograph of your entire parish to your villagers, your parishioners, and they can do this, everything that we're doing now. The real beauty for me of public maps is that any change that you make inside Parish Online is automatically updated to your public map. So if we now go in and make a change to a new planning application, we enter it in, lo and behold, it will show up in this public map within seconds of our finishing making the change. And that saves you so much time and trouble. I think it's genius. All right, let's go back to the slideshow. So that was basically our version from the outside. Now we're going to go inside and see what it actually looks like and how we're going to produce it. So for those of you who are still fresh to Parish Online, I've now opened up Parish Online. We've got no layers turned on, but I have opened up the parish layers over here on the left-hand side, just to show you that we don't have a planning application layer there yet for 2022, because that's what we're going to do today. And I'll show you how to do this bit about sorting later on in the show. So here are the applications as they stand at the moment for 2021. And this is basically the inside Parish Online version of what we were looking at on the browsable URL. And again, you can control this to any way you like, zooming in, zooming out, and now got all the entries for this particular year. So moving on, we're zooming in. We've color coded I've given you the sort of the codes here for what each of these things are. You can see that it's a busy year for this particular estate. And the green ones are the ones that have been approved and are going ahead. The red ones have been completely rejected, and they've even suffered an appeal and they've lost the appeal. And the purple ones are all the ones that are awaiting a decision from the local planning authority. In the left-hand column now, these are all the details that we store in Long Sutton. So basically the application number, where it is, when we received it, when we considered it in the parish council, any comments we wanted to make, what the status is from the district council, when they made that decision, and then that same link that we showed you earlier. And you can, if you wish, if you're not familiar with Parish Online, add any attachments to an entry in Parish Online. So if you have a photograph or you want something that will clarify for your councillors when they discuss this application, then you can put it in there. And for those of you who, again, are fresh to this, you can throw in extra layers of information such as grade 2 sites, sites of scientific SSSIs, and conservation areas, anything that will have an implication upon the decision that the council makes with respect to any specific application. So that one I showed you, that was the link. We've seen that. Moving right on, there's all the the documents associated with this particular application. And now I'm just going to summarize where we've got to. Basically, we've shown you how you can get in, out, around, and up and down on a public map. And we've shown you how you did those things also in Parish Online. And if I'm racing on, then please put rude comments in the chat so that you can tell me we'll sort it out next time. All right. So what we want to do now is create a completely new planning application layer. We're going to add all the desired columns of information, some of which will include drop-down lists. We're going to configure those columns so that you can prepare them for the public map. We're then going to add some actual data so that you can see that it works. We'll then do styling so you can see the effect of labels and colors, and then we'll publish the results. And as I said, it's a bold target, so bear with me for speed, please. All right, so what we're going to do is add these columns of information to a new layer. So again, you just need to have these somewhere in the back of your mind, but don't be too precise because they're all covered later. And in Parish Online, when you want to add a new layer, which is what we're going to do at the moment, you go up to the top level menu, click on Create, and select the new layer choice, which is what we've done. And that brings up this little pop-up screen. And I've entered in a title, which is Planning Applications 2022. And that's very simple. Keep this particular description sweet on short because it's got to fit into that column on the left-hand side. And you've got lots of space in the next screen to put in a much more detailed description. So when you're ready, click on Next. And here you've got a really essential piece, which is selecting the geometry type you're going to have in this layer. Now, each layer of information within Parish Online can support just one type of geometry, either a polygon or a line or a point. So in this case, because we're going to be doing planning applications which tend to cover areas, we're selecting polygons. But if you have any application in which you wanted to just do points like individual trees or park benches or something like that, then you choose points. And if you want to do things like footpaths, you choose lines. And if you want to be able to present something to anybody in Parish Online, which has all three types of geometry, then it's very simple. You just create 3 separate layers and you put them all on at once. But we'll get into that later. So then I promised you can put in as many words as you like to give a description. And the point of this is that it's crystal clear to you now what you're doing. But the question is, will it still be crystal clear to you in 6 months' time, or to anybody that may come into Parish Online later, say in a couple of years? How on earth will they know what on earth? Well, in this case, Planning Applications 2022 is pretty self-evident, but some of the other choices that we make later may not be anything like as evident. So moving on. This is where we start adding the columns or fields of data that we're going to need. So that list I came up with earlier, such as application number and application date and that sort of thing, that's what we're going to put in here. And it starts off as a completely empty list, and then you add, sorry, if somebody wanted to say something? You add new columns by clicking on the plus sign at the top right-hand corner up here. So we'll do that, and up it comes, and it automatically names each new field name, but you're only allowed 1 name per list. You don't have to have name at all, but you cannot have more than 1. So the first thing that you want to do is to change it, and you just put your cursor in the box here and just start typing. So we move on. I've changed it to application number. I want to have another field, so I'm going to click on to the plus sign up here and click again. Now, there's a little discussion here underneath about required fields. It shows up much more clearly later, so I'm not going to discuss it now. So we still got more columns to go. So let's click on plus again. And I've gone through these for you in advance. I've just paused on date of application because it is a text field, but you do have the choice here of dropping down and changing it to a date field or a number field. Now, depending upon your personal whim, I, as somebody who's lived in the States, have a violent objection to any DD/MM/YY type choice of dates because the Americans always get it backwards. So to avoid confusion, I use sort of DDMMMYY, which is like sort of 02 June 64, and then no one has any doubts as to what I'm talking about. But that's just a personal thing. You can choose dates if you want to. Still got more columns to go, so we click on the plus sign again, and we're going through. And the decision by the parish council is the first one where we wanted to have acceptable values. Now, the reason for these is to avoid confusion by different people entering data and putting different things, different words for the same thing. So the solution to that is to give them no choice. They have to select the words you want from a drop-down menu. So to create that drop-down menu, you're now going to click on this little add here under the allowed values. So we're going to click on that, and up it comes with another little pop-up screen, and you're just going to put the value in here. Now, the first one we had is sort of supported or not objected or whatever it happens to be. So you type that in, which I've done, and then you can add another one. So we type in another one and moving on until you've got all the ones that you want. And when you're happy, you click on the confirm button. And by the way, you don't have to get all this absolutely right the first time round. It's extremely simple to go in and make changes to Parish Online later. So we can always come back and make an edit to this in the future. So don't be too worried if you don't know how many of these you're going to be using. Just put in the ones you do know about. We can always add more later or take out ones that turn out to be wrong. So when you're happy, we click on confirm. And so now it tells you these are all the lists that you've put in. Do you like them? If you do, click on finish. And if you don't, click on back and you can go make the changes. But you can always come back and make changes later. So we're going to click on finish. And here are all the fields that we've added in the columns. So lots and lots of them. We also added allowed values for the LPA. There were 4 in there. So what we used was the terms that the local planning authority themselves use. So they tend to be something like awaiting decision, approved, rejected, or on hold, or whatever it happens to be. Under appeal is a good one. And then I'm going to be talking to you later about the special characteristics of this link because it's a hyperlink and needs special care. You can also, if you don't like this order of the fields that I've put in, you can change them just by selecting one and then moving it up or down with the arrows as you wish. So we're going to say we're happy with that, and we click on save. And this now brings you to the the administration page of Parish Online, which will show you how to get to this separately later. But at the moment, you've finished all your work, you've clicked on save, and it's gone. It's disappeared. There's no planning applications 2022. Now, this is because we've already got lots of layers in our parish layers. If you don't have any, then yours would have arrived at the top. But because it always adds new ones to the bottom, we're going to have to scroll down to find ours. And lo and behold, there it is at the bottom. Now, you don't want to be scrolling all the way through all of your parish layers when you're only going to be doing planning applications today. So it's worth reordering them. And you can click on this little equal sign here, and up pops this little instruction saying drag to reorder. And you can now just move planning applications by dragging it up through here to get it to wherever you do. We're going to take it to the top. So we do that, and now it's appeared at the top here. And basically we finished entering the different columns of data that we want to store for our planning applications. What we want to do now is to configure them as we need them to show up, as we need them to go out to the public map. And we're going to do that by clicking on this columns tab underneath the layer details. So I do that and pop all these columns that we've just created. And it automatically, the system automatically ticks everything for search and query purposes. which is fine, so that when you're doing a search later on in Parish Online, you can search on any of the fields that you've put in here. What is interesting now is we're going to discuss is required. So the idea of required is that you will not be able to create a new record in this layer until you have completed any field which is marked as required. Now, obviously, at the moment, none of them is marked on required, but we're going to do that in the next page. So now I've added 5 fields which I think must be essentially completed before I want to add any new planning application to my system. So you'll see later what the effect of this is on the system, but for now I've just selected these. It's an arbitrary choice on my part. You don't have to select any, but I strongly recommend you save at least one in the required column, because otherwise you're almost bound to be unable to find your record later. If you haven't got any data saved in it, and you then went ahead and saved, and it let you save it because you didn't have anything that was required, you've now saved a completely empty record in the database. And that does present issues later. So I suggest you always have at least one required field. Okay, the next step is to determine which of our fields we want to send out to the public map. And the reason for that is you don't want to send any information that the public is going to be able to see that actually is personal or private or doesn't belong out there. So if you've got somebody's telephone number or email address stored in Parish Online, you want to be very sure that nothing like that goes out to the public map. Now, for demonstration purposes, I've said that in notes here, we may have personal information like the reason we didn't approve this application was whatever it happens to be. And you may not think that that should be personal information that should be publicized. So you leave that one out. So we've said we will not include notes in the public map, but all the other fields, you'll notice that we are able to turn on, or you showed the application number. And when people clicked on the data column on the left, all these information appeared. In actual fact, in ours, notes did appear, but that's why I've left it out of the demo so that you can see it won't appear when we finish today. So the next thing is the hyperlink. We did have a hyperlink to the local planning authority portal. The question is, how do you make that work? Well, that's what we're going to do on the next slide. So what we've done is we say, we want this link here. So we've clicked in this column, the column marked link, at the level of the link here field. And then of particular importance is these 3 little dots, which you must click on for every one of these ticks that you put in here. So in our case, there's only one. So we're going to click on those 3 dots there. And that brings up this hyperlink, which basically is going to say, so how do you want the hyperlink to work? And in 99 out of 100 cases, you're just going to want it to work the default way. So rather than go through the very difficult explanation of how the other 2 options work, we're just going to leave it at default and click on confirm. And now we're done. So everything is ready to go. We finished. You can click on the yellow button up here to save everything. And it says, are you sure? So you say, yes, please. So you go ahead and do that. And although you can't see it on the presentation, you will get a little green pop-up box here that says successfully saved, or it may come up with a red box and say saving error. You know, the usual cause of that is when Nigel's wife has turned on the Open University and interfered with his connectivity, and the system glitches, because you are saving from your computer up to the cloud. So it's usually a very temporary thing. If you click on save again, it'll come back with a green pop-up. You do want to make sure you get a green pop-up, so be persistent, because you don't want to lose the work that you've done. So when you've completed, you've got the green save thing, which only stays on for about 5 seconds, by the way. So you need to be not going off for a cup of coffee whilst the system is saving. You can click on the little globe up here, which takes us back to the maps. So just to sort of keep track of where we're going, we've created the new layer. We've created the columns of information, the fields. We've configured them to give drop-down boxes with acceptable answers. We've moved the layer from the bottom of the list up to the top so that when we go into parish layers, it's there, it's easy to work on. And we've configured the requirement of the columns for required public and link, as we discussed, and we've saved it. So what we're going to do next now is actually enter a record into this new layer so that we can go on and do the next steps with it, because we need to have something in there to work on. So the next step then is to put in a new data record. So we've gone back to the main map and we haven't got anything in particular selected, but you've now see up here, you've now got Planning Applications 2022 has arrived at the top of the list of parish layers because we moved it there. And if you right click anywhere in this layer, up pops this little mini menu. And what we want to do is to add a feature, a new data application, sorry, a new planning application. So we click on the add feature. And you'll see that the left-hand column now changes to the data that you have put into all those columns that we were entering earlier. And you'll notice that the ones in red absolutely require a value, something to be entered in here. It's not data validation per se, because it doesn't check what it is that you've entered to see if it makes sense, but this is where it insists that you put in something, otherwise it won't save the record. And you'll notice that we've got nothing in these red boxes at the moment, and so the save button is grayed out, it won't work. And although you can't see it, for some reason it wouldn't stay when I was saving this, your mouse, which you can now see as an arrow on my cursor, it actually would have changed to a crosshairs, and it will stay as a crosshairs until it's satisfied that you've done all that you need to do. So the next step is to start filling in some of these fields. And I've put in some, and you can see this is rather an imaginary number here. I've put in the applicant's name, put in the date for the application, the date when the parish council considered it. And incidentally, we're just doing this house, which by some extraordinary chance is mine. And I come down to the decisions from the parish council. And I've decided that what the parish council did was supported my decision to build something in my back garden with no objections. But you do have the choice of any of these to put in. And if you find you want to put in something that doesn't already exist there, if you click on the plus sign, it'll let you enter a new entry. So remember I said it's not that critical as to whether you've got all the answers that you want to have there, because you can add to these drop-down lists just by clicking on the plus. So I just stopped at this point to show you this choice, but then we go on to the next slide. We'll finish all the other ones. And you'll see that we've now put in the link to the portal, and I did that by cutting and pasting from their link. So when they send you an email, at least this is the way it happens in South Somerset's District Council, you get an email from the planning people saying there's a new planning application, it has this planning application number, and you need to go to our portal and enter that number in, and up will come all the details. But when it does that, then you cut and paste that URL and stick it in here. Again, you cannot see yet that the mouse hairs or the cursor is still a mouse hairs, but we have filled in all the fields, but the save button is still grayed out because you haven't put in any location here to say this is where the planning application is going to be for. So we move on to do that. And you can see that there is now a new box in my back garden. And the way I created this was just to click on the top left corner with my crosshairs mouse, move it along, click it again to change direction, move it down, click again to change direction, click again to change direction, go back here and double click to say I've finished. And that says fine. It shows you this little square and it says you can now save. So the save is no longer grayed out. So we do that, and it pops back up to you with a nice bright red indication of where we're talking about. You'll notice that in the left-hand column, this has now changed to another blank record because it's ready for you to add another application if you're doing 6 at once, which sometimes, you know, we get several through at one time. So it's very handy to move straight on to the next one. However, for today's purposes, we're not going to add another record. So we'll just click on the X up here to close the feature editor, and we'll go back to the same screen as before. So you'll notice that we've still got Planning Applications 2022 selected. We've still got my house showing up as somewhere that needs a change, but now we need to edit this and get some more information in, put it a bit more precise into the measurements that I've just sort of dropped in here. So I'm going to click on the red space, anywhere in the space, and it pops up with a left-hand column with data. And in this case, it says your information is stored in layer 2022, but if there had been other planning applications on my house, then it would say, well, by clicking here, you've also picked up 2019, 2017, or whatever it is, 1066, when you were living in your thatched house. But in this case, we're happy with Planning Applications 2022, so we click on that and up comes our data, and you'll remember all of this from before. I hope you're taking particular note of the notes, which are very important. But if we want to make a change now, we would click on this pencil to go into the record and make changes. This is a good time if you wanted to add an attachment. You could click on the button here to attach, and you can add anything from your computer. So a photograph, a document, whatever it happens to be that you think is relevant to this particular planning application. So what we're going to say now is that this was not a very precise diagram when I chucked it in. And that was quite deliberate, because when you're using Parish Online, it's very much faster and more effective to do a very rough outline first, to just get the rough approximate shape in there. But then later, if you have to sort of say, follow a much more tedious diagram, like the building outline here, or whatever it happens to be, it's much easier to go in now in this edit mode and change it. So we click on this pencil at the top of the column, which switches us to edit mode. And I've now gone in and said, I'm going to change this edge of the field, or the new building should be up here on this boundary line with my next door neighbor. And so I was just clicked on the edge of the corner, it turned to a dot, and I pulled the dot up there. Now, if, for instance, the middle of this line should have gone out to this edge of the building here, you just click on the middle, a dot appears, and you pull it. And you've now got a little sort of triangle. But as you work on this, you can get a very precise shape, and it's very much easier to do this when you're starting from a rough outline than when you're trying to do the precise outline the first time round. The chances are that you'll click on the wrong place and the whole lot will disappear. So please take my advice. Just do a rough outline first, then come back and edit it. I think I probably just jumped a slide. Yep. So we've done all our features. We've clicked on save, and we're going to go and do some styling. So we're clicking on this X to close down the feature editor and return us to the normal layers. Comme ça. So we still got Planning Applications 2022. We do a right click anywhere on this line and up will pop this little mini menu. And on this occasion, we're going to change and select style, which brings us to here. And this is the default screen. So in other words, this is how it appears when you first turn on styling. It doesn't do anything, but you'll notice that the preview is bright red because that's what we've been seeing. My house or my new summer house or whatever it happens to be is in bright red. So what we're going to say is, first of all, we want some labels. And I'm sorry, I got the order wrong. The first thing we're going to do is change the style. So you'll notice that on our planning applications, the colors of the applications varied according to what status they were. So they were purple for awaiting a decision, they were green for approved, and they were red for rejected. So what we want to do is to set that up. So we're going to start in this column on the left, and we're going to click on this little drop down arrow here for the style type. And you'll find that the choice here is either single or class-based. And in order to get anything to work according to a changing data situation, which is what we're doing here, we want it to be class-based. So we've selected class-based. We've gone down to the class column and say, what is the color going to depend upon? And in our case, it's going to be the status per the LPA. So that's what we're going to select. Now, just in passing, you'll see that here, the classes that are being represented at the moment is the planning application number, because that's what popped up into this column when we opened the mini menu. But it's going to change on the next slide because we're going to change it down to this status per LPA, which we've done. So we now got status per LPA is the class column, and the classes now are the 4 decisions that you're able to get from the LPA records. So this is what they're going to be. And it came up with this particular color code, which is what the system chose, not what we want. So we're saying, okay, we want to change this now so that it does match what we want. So bear in mind that we're working on approved. We don't like the color red for approved. We think it should be dark green. So I've clicked on the red square, and up pops the color code choice. And you can either go with one of these preset block colors, which is very, very simple because you just click on them and bang, you're done. Or if you like to be more delicate in your work, you can come up here and you can move around and get whatever shade of whatever color you like as you move. And I think the system here will let you put in a color code number if you happen to know what it is. So if you know what the red, green, and blue codes will be, and you want it to match a specific one, you can enter them in here, and that's what you get. But when you've got the one you want, and I've just selected, it was on red, I'm going to go select on dark green and save. And lo and behold, our approved is now changed to dark green. And lo and behold, the preview is showing that. Awaiting decision is purple. We're happy with that. Decided weird color, but refused certainly shouldn't be light green. It should be red. So I'm going to click on that again, and we get red. Now, over here in the style column, or sorry, style options, it says, what do you want the label column to be? Because now we've moved on to labels. And I want the label column to show the application number. So each application is going to have its number on it on the map. So I select application number, which I've done here. And the color scheme, you notice we changed this one to red, which is great. And there's this little funny icon up here by the labels label, which says, copy this label to all classes. In other words, no matter what the status is here, do you want the label to appear? And the answer for us is yes. So we click on that little icon, and that just translates everything that we've done across to here. Now, you could have an entire hour itself on all the combinations of these other buttons and choices here. But basically, all they're doing is saying, how big is this going to be? Does it have a halo around it? What color do you want? Do you want a black line around the outside or a silver line? All these things will change that, you know, rather than just a solid number. Do you want it to be filled with diagonals or whatever? You can do all of that, but that's not part of today's lecture. I'm just letting you know that's where it is. So basically, we're complete here. We're happy. We can, we can move on. So you'll now see that having changed everything, lo and behold, my application has indeed changed color because it's now awaiting a decision from the LPA, and it's now got a label right across the middle. So that worked. Astonishing, but it's true. So what's next? Well, the next thing to do was we wanted to publish the information, and we said there are 3 ways that you can publish information. You can print it out on a piece of paper, or you can print it out electronically, or you can produce a spreadsheet, or you can do a public map. And we're now going to go ahead and do those. So This is the printing. We've selected print from this upper menu here, and up popped this screen, and it says, what do you want to call it? So I typed in the title here. It was a blank space. I've typed in the description. It was a blank space. The template here defaults to A4 landscape, which you can click on the little mini arrow and get sort of A3 portrait or A3 landscape or A4 portrait or something else. And you get best fit, again, it defaults to this, but if you want to change it, and you may do later, experience tells, you can come back and change the scale. Then, quite important, you have a choice of producing this as a PDF file or as a PNG file. So this basically is a document format, and this is a graphical format. And then you can select which of these you want to come out on your print. And I've added legend, and I've added north arrow, and the toggle mask was there anyway. So when you're happy, I don't quite know why we're so far down the screen, because there's more to come up the top. Well, when you're happy, there's a print button down the bottom. You click on print, and it comes up and says print. It may take a while. You may get one of your little sort of circular arrows whizzing around whilst it thinks about what it's doing, but it will eventually come up and put the name of your file here. And you may not see it, because if there's a lot of stuff going on here, it may have disappeared off the bottom of the page. So you may find you need to scroll down and find your print, but I promise you it will be there somewhere. And so when you're happy, you click on the print button or the little arrow here, and off you go. And this is the printout that you get. And I have no idea why we're sort of cut off halfway down. Sorry about that. But you'll see now that we've put a frame around our map. We've put a title on it. We've put an author. We've put the date. Down the bottom, although you can't see it on my picture, but there is a copyright statement that makes this legal from the eyes of the Ordnance Survey. And we've got the legend in here, so that if there had been 3 or 4 other applications in different colors, you'd know what the colors meant. So that was the printout via a document. You have the choice now of either printing on a piece of paper by clicking on the printer, or saving it to the file electronically with this one. You can just download it. So what we then went on to, and I wonder where I can fix why this is cut off. I mean, you're only seeing half a slide at the moment. I'm sorry. I don't think it's important, because I'm talking about what's written down the bottom of the slides. But basically, most of what I'm saying is in notes at the bottom of these slides. And when you get them, you will have them all there to see. So what we're saying now is we've done the printout of a document or an electronic format. We're now going to say, how do you do a spreadsheet? So we come back to our planning applications layer. We right click anywhere on it, and up comes our little mini menu. And what we want is a table view. So we click on the table view, and it very nicely generates basically a spreadsheet format for you of all the information that we've put in today. And you can sort of move this around and limit how much shows and whatever. But my advice to everybody is just go ahead and export the whole lot, because when you want to make changes, it's usually much faster to do it in Excel or whatever spreadsheet program you're using. So if we've only got one record in here, so only one record shows, but if you've got like my 2021 stuff, nearly 100 applications, then they'd all show up here. You click on the export button and they will buzz off to a spreadsheet, which is, again, very handy. So the last point of how do we get information out to people was to create a public map. Very ferocious. So public maps are available through this little cogwheel at the top here. So you click on the cogwheel, you get a mini menu, and administration pops up. And administration is what you want to select. So I wonder whether we can ask that person to just mute themselves.
No.
No? How about a mute? There we go. All right, so when you've clicked on the administration button, you get up this list here, and you want to select public maps. And public maps will appear here if there are any, if you've done any before. If you're doing this for the first time, it'll be completely empty. And what you want to do is create a new one. So you're going to click on the plus sign for new, which we do. And up comes this system, and it says you have a choice now of what do you want to include in your public map. We've selected aerial imagery, and we click on next. And in the second one, it says which of the parish layers of information do you want to include in your public map? So the parish layers include, you'll be delighted to know, your asset register. So if you've entered anything into your asset register, you could get it out here. And the way this system works is you click on whatever you want to do on the left-hand side, and it will pop up onto the right-hand side. And so you're going to end up with 1, 2, 3, or 0 or more layers of information here, depending on your choice. And I've just gone for the new one, Planning Applications 2022. I've thrown in 2021 just for good measure, and we want a legend. So having got all that, then we move on to next. And here it says, of all the third-party layers, of which there are hundreds in Parish Online, are there any that you wish to include in this public map? And one that you might often include, for instance, is address points, because they can be very helpful to show up an address for everybody's house. But in this case, I've just said, no, we don't want any, so we'll move on. So the system says you're going to have to select at least one layer, but it doesn't mind if you've only got one from the third parties and none from the parish layers, or you've only got one from the parish layers and none, as we have here, from the third party layers. So again, we're moving on to next, and you'll notice along the top here, there's a sort of a progress screen of where we are. So we've selected the base map, we've selected my layers, parish layers, we've selected third party layers, although we selected none. And now we're on start location. And this is saying, when you start up your public map, what do you want to include? And you can adjust this. You'll see that you've got a plus and a minus here to zoom in or out, and you can scroll left or right so that when the system comes up for the first time, it's something that your average member of the public is going to be able to recognize. So you need to be zoomed out quite a way for people to see that you've got the whole of your village in there, because if you've scrolled down to a particular field in a particular lane, it's going to be meaningless to most people. So you're just going to choose here a start location that makes sense. And the default that they give you is as good as any. So when you're happy, click on next. And this page is now where you're deciding what's going to show up when people first go into the public map. So you give it a title. And this title is just to sort you out, because it doesn't become visible to the public. In here, you give people tools. You say, do you want them to be able to turn layers on or off? We've said yes. Do you want them to be able to do things like postcodes? And we say yes, and query layers and so forth. And I've left out addresses in this case because we're not doing addresses. Here, again, you can say, this is really for planning applications for 2022, so you can off check the other two, and then people can choose to select them in when they want to by going to that sort of box in the top left corner on the public map. So when you've got all of that happy, off we go. And basically, you're now at the sharp end of the public map. So here is the address that you're going to send to people. And if you have a web designer who looks after your village website for you, you can cut and paste this to him because it's all the code he's going to need. He doesn't need to do anything else except embed this code into his web design, which is extremely convenient. The little icons over to the right here are cut and paste icons. So if you click on them, it automatically saves the information to the left for you, particularly useful for you when you're embedding the code. You can just sort of email this off, if you will, to your web designer, so he's got what's necessary to include the public map in your village website. There is a preview button up here, so you can get an advanced glance to see whether you've got what you want or whether you go back and make a change. But we're going to say we're entirely happy to this. We've pasted the URL into our clipboard, and now we're going to actually produce it. So now we've got a new tab in the clipboard. We've plugged in this particular URL, and it's come up with the answer. And that is essentially what we were looking at when we started, with one notable exception. I hope you've spotted the deliberate error. We gave them a map and not the photography. Again, I think looking at the time, I better come and take a look and see what there are in the way of questions before we come back and fix that. But it is in fact just a single button to select to put the photographs in. So let me just check the chat show to see if there is anything that we need to get into, and people are very welcome to ask questions if they wish. Go into here, go into chat. There are 3 questions. All right, people, oh dear. All right, well, the time it takes does seem like a long time when you're seeing it for the first time. I've actually produced a public map in about less than 2 minutes. It's very fast once you've got the idea. Putting planning application data in, again, once the structure is in place, it's just a matter of 30 seconds for each one, depending upon how complicated the diagram has to be. But I agree, when you're showing this for the first time, it seems to take forever. But in terms of once you've got any degree of familiarity with Parish Online, it is actually remarkably fast. Okay, question, I'm interested to see how this promotion is, how they access it via a parish website. Well, hopefully I've done that. Link to a planning committee agenda. Yes, certainly there is on the user group website a list of previous clinics. And in one of them, I think it's the 3rd one, a gentleman from Compton, Dundon, showed how they run their entire parish council meetings online in Parish Online. And it's full of really useful hints of how to do it, and also lots of hints of how to put links into documents so that parish councillors can just pull them up and have a look at them. So I hope that answers Jill's question here. And also, okay, Carenza, there's a great point. Parish councils who use it, if you go to the Parish Online website, which is parish-online.co.uk, they have a tab there called, this is one of those wonderful moments where your mind goes, case studies. And if you click on case studies, there are literally hundreds of examples of how people across the country have used Parish Online. And the beauty of these case studies, I think they're very valuable because they give you a step-by-step instruction on how to get there from where you are. So I commend to you the case studies on the Parish Online website. They're very good at showing how other people have done what it is that you're trying to do, or even why. How do we add a new column once a layer has been created and saved? Great question, Amanda. You would go back into the administration. Let's see if we can actually do it for you. We're over here. I need to share my screen again, sorry. Just share the screen and we'll go through that because it's quite quick and easy. So now let me go into Parish Online. We don't want that. I don't want to, certainly don't want to end the meeting just yet. So you may recall, let me just move your pictures. Up in here, we have administration. So you click on the cogwheel, go into administration, and you wait patiently for the system to download all of your layers because they're coming from the cloud storage. So believe me, it will happen. So now we say, okay, we want to go into planning applications, the one we've just dealt with, and we want to edit it. Okay, and now up come all your columns, and you say, I want to add a new one, and I really don't need notes, so you can delete that one. You click on it and click on the wastebasket. You click on add and you add a new column, just the same way as you started. When you're finished and happy, you save. So hopefully that answered Amanda's question. Like to use a map showing council assets such as Benz's bins. Absolutely. So great question, Carenza. Hopefully your assets are already sitting in your asset register. And if they're in the asset register, it becomes very simple to actually demonstrate them on the map. They can't get into the asset register until you've placed them on the map. So you can just show whatever council assets you wish. You can show all the benches and all the bins and all the street lights, or you can say, I only want to show benches or bins. There's a filter operation on that table. Remember when we were doing a right click in a layer and you got up a mini menu, and the bottom item in the mini menu is a filter. And you can say, out of all the items in this layer, I only want you to show me the salt bins or whatever it happens to be. And that's what you'll get. So you start off with a map that's got everything on it, and then you just filter out the ones that you don't want, and you're left with the ones that you want to show the council. So how many times has the pattern? No. I wonder, that's the first time I've been asked that question. I wonder whether Geosphere, the people who produce Parish Online, they may be able to. That's a great question. I'll ask them because I think it's very interesting. Yeah. Can we see how you've used it for allotments? How you used it to map them out, and can you zoom in sufficiently for it? Yep. Well, allotments is a layer of information that's already in there. It comes by default. Let me share the screen again. And we need to be in just regular XMap, so not here. Cancel that one. Go back to the main thing. So bear with me whilst the system resets. All right, so allotments are already here. And if the National Allotment Society knows about your allotment, then it will appear in here because we've imported all of their data, but it comes as a boundary. So it just gives you the outline of the allotments. You were asking about allotment plots. Can you see them all and everything else? The answer to that is the best one I can do it is by demonstration. So as it happens, there's a major allotment right there. So let's zoom in. This question, there we go. And you can see the sign here, it says allotment gardens. And then the best trick of the lot is to turn on the photography. All right, so you're on an aerial data set, 12.5 centimeter is the tightest. Takes a little bit of time, but bear with me because it's worth it. So we can chat about the weather. We can chat about the treacle toffee that I'm going to have after this for energy, or we can await. Now, this looks a little vague because we have a system here which controls, let's go here, controls the level of transparency. So on this filter here, I can say, I want to see 100% map, or I want to see 100% photograph, or I want to see something in the middle. In the example you're asking about, I think we want to go for 100% photograph, and we want to zoom in and zoom in. And basically the answer to your question is, and we have to wait for the system to catch up, because although it looks all very fuzzy, it's going to get sharper and sharper as the download continues. But eventually you can see that you can now see every single plot in your allotments. And now it becomes a real doddle to turn on the allotment layer. So let's come down to here. So I want to see allotment plots. And then when it's turned on, you can add a feature and you can say, I want to show you this plot. And it's all there. Oh, sorry. All you do is just click once down it, down there, down there, down there. And finish. You've done one plot. You can do it for all of them as quickly as you like. But basically, there's enough detail there to get the boundaries of every single plot in your allotments. And I hope that's answered the question that you had. And how am I moving the map? About left and right. Okay. That's a great question, isn't it? How am I moving the map? All right, let's go back and move the map. So we'll go into our share again. Let's go back to, we say we're done with the allotments. Yeah, I don't want that. We're done. Continue. We're done with the photographs. Let's turn that off. And we're back to you. Sorry, we need to turn you on and get you from filter to there. So scrolling in and zooming in and out is very straightforward. Yes, I'm just sort of pressing on the minus button. Or if you've got a mouse with a wheel on it, you can roll the wheel. So I'm now rolling up or rolling down to get zoom in and out. And to scroll left or right, I click once. I'm now clicking the left button on my mouse and I just pull the whole map. Either way, you can go up, down, in, out, around, and about, whatever. And so that's a single click. Just do click and then move the whole map. And I hope that's what you were asking. So stopping share, any more questions? All right, I'm open to people to speak. If anyone would like to ask a question, feel free.
Graham, thank you very much. Actually, I had just started creating a public map for the first time and managed to get one up before this particular meeting. One thing I have not been able to do is when you said that you could put photographs or attachments on your map. I can do that on Parish Online, but I can't get it to show the photographs on the public map.
Quite right, Nigel. They haven't got that far yet. As a matter of fact, last week I opened a ticket with Parish Online to ask them, saying it's now been a year since the first time I asked this question, and you said it would be coming. And so what's the progress? And so far they've been too busy to answer me. So it's on its way, Nigel, but it isn't here yet. So it's not a fault of your system, it's the system as a whole. It's quite complicated adding attachments to the public map, particularly when there may be questions about should you enable all attachments that you've got. Let's suppose you've got 50 photographs on your allotment map or something. You publicize that, and then you discover that half the photographs shouldn't have been there because they're not quite politically correct or whatever. So they were getting quite complicated when they said, well, how do you determine which attachments go through? Should it be all of them? Should it be only the first one? What should it be? And that's where they got stuck coding. So they're working on it, but they aren't there yet.
Does that apply also then to documents which you might attach?
In terms of public maps, yes.
Yes. The other question then I've got, which is, I suppose, slightly related, is I can get the URL taking me from the public map direct to, say, the South Somerset District Council website, and right. I can view the documents. I've tried to put not just that in, but I also wanted to show an existing document link. You open on the South Somerset District map, you can open the link, you can open the size of the building or the extension of the building which has been required.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to put that link as a separate one, just for someone to have a quick look to see what it is, rather than going through the whole process. And sure. I wasn't able to get that second link into the system, and I don't know whether that's me or again the system.
I think it sounds like it's something that we can work on, Nigel, because it's certainly possible.
Yeah, I thought it probably would be. Yeah.
So why don't you come along to a banter session and find out?
I will.
So in passing, let me mention to everybody that the usual suspects, about 4 or 5 people who know what they're doing. There's one who he's just disappeared from my screen, but Chris is one of the usual suspects. We get together at 3 o'clock on a Friday afternoon and we sit and wait for people to call asking for help. And anybody can join in, anybody can ask any question they like. The one that Nigel has just asked is classic, but you can also ask whoever it was who said, how do you scroll from left to right on the screen? You can call in with that question. And we call it a banter session because it's very light-hearted, it's very humorous. But you do have people there who can answer almost any question you've got in Parish Online. So I heartily recommend to everybody that you come along to a banter session. The way to get there is to go to the user group website and click on bookings. You can just book a slot. And you can do it at the last minute. You can do it very ad hoc. You can start halfway through. So if we start at 3 o'clock and you're only available from 3:30, by all means, come along at 3:30. So that's a great way of getting a question that's really bugging you answered almost straight away. Usually, I think 99% of the time, we are able to answer people's questions whilst they're still there. So that's a great suggestion. If you haven't already spotted it, the user group has a help site on it, which is particularly aimed at newcomers. So if you go into Parish Online's help system, which is very wide-ranging and very sophisticated, it doesn't always help you if you're completely new to Parish Online and want to know how to get started. And the point of the help system on the user group website is to fill that little gap. So if you're brand new to Parish Online, go to the user group. And if you know what you're doing, then go to Parish Online's help system. And by the way, the one on the user group site actually links to every document on the Parish Online formal help system anyway. So it's really just meant to be a complementary system for newcomers.
Yeah, what's the user group, sorry, website? Have you shared that already?
Oh, yes, so it's on the slides,
okay,
Nina, but I can put it in the chat for you all. So it's very complicated. I don't know that people understand this. So that may be more than anyone can understand, but there it is. I'm wide open to questions. I'm also alert to the point that we've gone beyond our time for those of you who have to go.
Hello, Graham. It's Simon Lee here. I did actually put a message on about copyright, Ordnance Survey copyright.
Oh, yes, you did. I'm sorry, Simon. I should have answered that. Is that when sending public links?
I guess I could open that out to say any time that you're sharing data, via the maps, is the copyright protected?
Yes, what they do is they put it on the printed version because, of course, then it becomes a document and they want the copyright to be there. On the electronic system, it's there if you sent it as a PDF file, for instance, or a PNG file. If you created it through the print system, then that automatically adds the copyright to every document.
Okay.
So you are actually complying with their licensing requirements.
Okay. What about if we are illustrating a public footpath suggested route on our village website? I was thinking maybe linking that through to the map.
That's fine. I don't think anyone's fussed about that. All Ordnance Survey is looking for is to make sure that people know that they're behind it.
Okay.
But with COVID, the interest in footpaths has ballooned, and certainly we spend quite a lot of effort on. Actually, the biggest factor for us is people reporting that the stiles or the bridges are broken.
Sure.
Will we please fix them?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, and thank you for today.
You're very welcome. Good to see you. Anybody else? No one's waving hands or going frantic.
I have a quick one, sorry. Thanks for showing us the bit about the allotments, the mapping of plots. From that bit where we've created a layer and we've mapped the plots, can we get the measurement? I know we can get measurements. I just wanted to check, can we get the area from once we've mapped all the
Yes,
plots?
absolutely. So if you've got a few seconds, let me just show you how to do that. So let's suppose we're interested in how big this particular allotment is here. You can go into it and it will tell you down here how big it is. But if let's suppose it's something that you're measuring straight away for the first time. So let's just go into the scale a bit and say, we want to know how big this particular green area is here. You can go up to the tools measure and say, I want to measure area. So now, again, the same principle applies. I click once at the start and go along to the first change direction, change direction, change direction, change direction, change direction, and double click. And that's 2,362 square meters. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Yeah, you're more than welcome.
Brilliant.
I do have a question for everybody, which is, I'm conscious that we gallop through these things at a huge speed. Would people prefer to have a much less broad agenda and then cover it more slowly? Or are you happy to take the galloping and then go through it more slowly when you get the presentation?
Graham, my particular view is that on a subject such as this, it's very useful to know what the system offers.
Yes.
And then to be able to go back and work out the detail as to how to do it. So from my perspective, I thought this was a really useful presentation. And if there's something I really need to go back to, such as we discussed, I can come back to you on it. But this gives me a broad brush. This is what the system can do for you.
Yeah, well, you'll get both a copy of the video and the actual slide presentation that we went through. And each slide presentation, although I noticed that you couldn't see it all the time when I was showing it, for some reason you only saw half, the bottom of every slide tells you each step that you have to take to achieve it. So it's a sort of a permanent record in itself for you, which I hope will be something that you can come back and look at in a year's time if you've been dragged away on something else in the meantime. But that's so one comment, you're happy to go whizzing through. Anyone else much prefer a slow and steady diet?
No,
I can put on my most boring mode if you wish. So I will be doing more of these and I will let everybody know. But thank you so much for showing up and I hope it was very helpful. And I'm wide open to...
Can I just put something in chat? Are we able to share the presentation and the video with our members?
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. I have no, what's the word, compunction about you showing wonderful pictures of me. By all means, go ahead.
Lovely.
All right. Any more questions before I sort of say goodbye to you all? You've been a wonderful audience. Thank you. I hope the dog has learnt a few lessons. Perhaps he'll be useful online, Parish Online user now.
Thanks very much. That was really useful. Thank you.
Well, you're very welcome. And
thanks, Graham.
Take care.
Graham.
And
Really
okay. I'll send you all a presentation in due course.
Thank you.
Bye bye all.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye.